Hey everybody. So I figured I'd take an opportunity to update you guys on this OPUS BT-C3400 battery charger. This is a charger that can charge several different sizes of lithium-ion cylindrical cells, most notably the 18650. It can also charge nickel metal hydride cells and probably NiCads too, like your little AA's and AAA's, those rechargeable ones. But mostly what this one gets used for is charging up 18650s. It can also be used to discharge 18650s. It can also be used to capacity test them. All that good stuff. So I've had this charger for 7 years, as I think I stated. I got this back in 2016 when I first started using 18650s in my flashlights and later in my cameras. Many of my video cameras have been modified to accept 18650 cells instead of the proprietary style 3.7 volt battery pack they originally had. So, for example, I have walking here in the kitchen. I still have a camera actually going. Pardon the mess, but it's still going after running since like 10 this morning. It's a Kodak ZI-8, and you can see it's been 18650 modded. It uses two 18650s in parallel. So I have two other cameras very similar to that one that are outdoors in the StormCam weather cases for CubeComp MTDX. So during the spring, summer, and fall, during storm season, those cameras get used sometimes multiple days a week. So I am constantly cycling through and recharging cells. I have a total of 24 cells that I use specifically for those cameras. And I also have a collection of cells that I use to power this camera here, as well as my flashlights. So, safe to say that this charger gets a heck of a lot of use. And you can see that this one does not look like the stock charger, because it's not. Back in 2021, I found a 3D print file, STL file on, I think it's Thingiverse. I downloaded it, and my place of work, we have 3D printers. So I brought it in and 3D printed this mold, which replaces the original bottom for this charger. And what that does is allows you to install a better cooling fan in this thing. So these chargers are notoriously loud in stock form. They have a little bitty, like 1-inch square fan that gets installed in the back there, and they're notorious for going bad on top of being noisy. So now this charger has a 80mm computer fan under it that's actually cooling it, and it jets the air out the back. I'm not sure you can see or not, but there's a little vent on the back of this charger. So, another thing I should mention is last year, when I moved into this new home and set up this new computer room, I converted this charger over from using the original battery charger, which is not this one here, but it looks a lot like that. So this charger, of course, used to have a little plug-in wall adapter that you would use to run it. A little 12 volt 3 amp, I think, supply, something like that. Now I'm running it off of my DC supply here in the computer room, which is a computer power supply that's been modded to be used as sort of a bench power supply. It puts out 12 volts, it puts out 5 volts, 3.3 volts as well. But I use that to run this, as well as my lighting in here. That way I don't have to have so many wall warts plugged into the outlets over here. So I can use this to run everything that runs on 12 volts. So this charger, I mean, aside from its weak points, which the stock power supply is actually one of the weak points, I should mention that I did have some issues with the charger with its stock supply. particularly when I'm charging high capacity cells like these here. These are Samsung 3500 milliamp hour cells. Used to be when I was charging similarly sized cells with the stock power supply, I would have all four running at 1 amp of charge, as you see like they're doing right now. A lot of times what would happen is the charger would, like halfway through a charge cycle, would just reset and it would charge at the default 500 milliamps per cell instead of the 1 amp per cell. So that was kind of annoying, but ever since I converted this to run off of this a PC supply, never had that problem ever since. And really all that mod involved was just taking a cord that was similar to the one that came with the OEM supply, which I still have the OEM plug-in supply. That way if I need to travel or anything, I can take this with me to charge cells should that be necessary. So yeah, all it involved was taking a similar cord with the same style barrel jack and just wiring it into my supply over here to 12 volts DC. And whenever this is powered on, this gets power. So there you have it. So aside from the fan, the poor design for cooling, including that fan, and the stock power supply, which I think the power supply that came with it was barely sized enough to run this thing. Which this thing really has a lot of power demand. Like, for example, if I plug in that cord while my lights and supply are on, this power supply unit will trip out. And I have to turn it off and turn it back on again. However, it can actually cold load pick up this fine. But what it is this thing has such a high demand, inrush current demand. And it also tends to have a bit of a high demand when charging too. I don't know if you can see my lights here. They kind of flicker a little bit because of the amount of demand that this is pulling. So aside from the supply, again, aside from the power supply and the stock cooling, the only other complaint or concern I would have about this charger is I really think this charger should have better protection for overheat. For example, your cells. If your cells start getting hot, this thing should shut down. Now I should mention it does have charger overheat protection. So if the charger overheats, it will pause discharging or charging whatever it's doing until it cools back down and it will resume. But the other issue is sometimes lithium-ion cells, when they start to go bad, what they will do is when you get up toward let's say over 4 volts, you get close to 4.2 volts, which is the full charge voltage of a typical lithium-ion cell. Sometimes what those cells will do is they will start to get hot because the chemistry has broken down in the cell and it will no longer retain a certain amount of voltage. So what happens is the energy that's being put in by the charger, instead of going to charging the cell, is just getting dumped as heat into the cell. The charger really ought to have a cutoff that senses that. So for example, if let's say you have an 18650 that's going bad and it starts to get hot, the charger should sense that and terminate charge. You shouldn't keep trying to charge the cell when the cell gets hot. That's something I think this product really should have. That's kind of a big one in my opinion. But other than that, I mean, this thing has been a total workhorse. I mean, the label with the model got completely worn off, but who knows how that happened. But yeah, this thing, like I say, I've been doing, for QComp MDX in particular, I've been doing these storm videos really heavily for about the past, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. It really, I mean, 2017 was a pretty busy year, but 2018 is when things really started to pick up. And I had, by 2018, 2019, I had, of course, a total of 3 different cameras going, each of them taking 2 cells. So that was sometimes more than 6 cells a day during a busy day, especially if I had to run the cameras more than once. So those cameras, by the way, they'll run for like 8 to 10 hours depending on which cells I put in the cameras. Like these pink cells, they're high capacity cells, so those cameras will run for like 10 to 11 hours filming at 720p. Whereas with the green cells, I'll get between like 6 to 8 hours generally. So yeah, this thing has definitely been a workhorse for sure. If you're looking for an 18650 charger, I would recommend this charger despite the shortcomings that it does have. The key one being that cooling. This thing really needs better cooling. The good news though is, of course, if you have a 3D printer, if you know someone who has a 3D printer, you can download that STL file and you can print out the revised bottom for this charger and replace the crappy stock fan with a good 80mm fan, such as, for example, this right here is an 80mm fan. Now the one I have in that charger is actually just a one I pulled out of a computer power supply, because the ones that come in power supplies generally have 2 wires. It's your positive and negative, no third wire. So I mean, I have a bunch of fans already, so it was no brainer. But if you don't have the fan, you can easily buy them for cheap on Amazon. I would suggest getting one that is just a simple 2-wire 12-volt fan, and you can easily fix the cooling issue with this. Now the power supply, the power supply still works. The original one that powered this does still work. The main reason why I swapped it out for this setup was to eliminate the extra wall wart on my outlets back here, but it is nice to have a little bit stronger power source than that stock charger or power supply. So anyways, like I said, this thing does have some shortcomings, but overall I would still recommend it if you're looking for an 18650 charger. So anyways, that wraps up for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, thanks for taking the time to watch this video from Kuku channel. If this is your first time, please subscribe to the channel and be sure to tick the bell so we get notified of a new video post. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, leave a comment, and share this video as well as the channel with your friends and get the word out. Also, I have a second channel, that's CubeCompMTDX. Over there you'll find videos about thunderstorms and weather, cycling, and videos about me personally. Feel free to subscribe over there as well if you like. Again, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for your support.